Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this breakfast debate of food trails under the motto, the role of cities for healthy food systems. So we talk about food. It's the best thing to do in the morning as a breakfast meeting. My name is Ivo Banek. I'm Communications Director from Eurocities, proud partner of the Food Trails project of the European Commission. Our mission is all in our names, Eurocities. We connect Europe and cities. And that means we connect cities with each other to learn from one another. And we connect cities with Europe to bring to the table what cities can do to tackle the challenges that Europe faces, and also what kind of support is needed for cities to do that. And that is exactly what we want to discuss today with a city example from Birmingham and with the Commission on the other side. And before I do that, I would like to welcome the Food Trails coordinator from the city of Milan, Andrea Magarini. And being at a breakfast meeting talking about food, the first question, Andrea, has to be, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I take my couple of coffee, that is really a plant of coffee.
Oh, wow. Nice. Please, the floor is yours to welcome the audience.
Thank you, Ivo. So Food Trails is a research project funded by European Commission Horizon 2020 for the next 4 years, and is led by the city of Milan. It's involved a broad partnership of 19 actors across Europe, including universities, foundations, associations, and also 11 large and medium-sized cities. I spoke about cities because the Food Trails goal is to design, test, and develop altogether 11 food policies in these cities. We have the ambition to co-design the next generation of food policies. And we won't do it alone, because each city will also activate its local living labs to involve citizens, associations, universities, and private sector for the development of its local food policies, and pilot actions will be financed by Food Trails. We want to innovate public procurement, urban agriculture, school canteens, and food waste prevention. And we will do even more by designing their economic sustainability through impact finance, because cities active on food policies are also able to monitor and assess their impacts. And we want to use and to exploit this impact to define also this kind of economic sustainability. And all of this is the results of many years of work together with Eurocities Working Group Food and with the cities in Europe of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. And with this in mind, with this perspective in mind, we are trying to prove how cities are ready to sit at the table with European stakeholders and transform together a sustainable and inclusive food system. I greet to the Councillor Hamilton and to have of you, Nikolakopoulou, to have a good breakfast dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for this short introduction. You can follow Food Trails on its website, which will be shared in the chat for you as an address. So that is to learn more about Food Trails. We will talk about, as a part of this work today, and that is especially the role of cities for a healthy food system. And on the EU Commission side, we have already introduced by you, Andrea, Alexandra Nikolakopoulou with us from the Directorate-General for Health and Food Safety, responsible for the Farm to Fork strategy. And that will be something that we would like to talk about in a few minutes. But first, we would like to hear from one of the cities that are working on the food. And this is Birmingham, where we have Paulette Hamilton, the councillor there. You've been working with health and social care for many years, and you're chairing the city's health and well-being board today. And so you're the perfect person to tell us a bit about how Birmingham is tackling one of the main challenges of our time, according to the World Health Organization. If you think about health risks and challenges, you think about COVID and the pandemic these days, but there has been something before and there's something that will last, and that is, according to the World Health Organization, obesity. It's overweight. It's people being too fat because of unhealthy food as one reason for that. How is Birmingham dealing with this challenge?
Good morning, and thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it. Tackling obesity has been a priority in the city of Birmingham since 2012, but we have paid more attention to creating a healthier food environment since we joined the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact in 2015. Actions we have taken as a local authority include ensuring our children have good quality school food. Our school meals provider serves over 50,000 meals in a 90-minute window each day. The only other place I've seen this is when I went to Bindi in India with the city that we do the exchange work with, and they've got a phenomenal system going there. This is prepared from scratch, the food is, and the food is procured locally when possible. The school meals provide also offers nutrition and healthy eating education to families to encourage school meal uptake. And you also have to remember, many children, that is the only time of the day they have a hot meal. We are also focused on supporting our youngest children. Healthy Start is a government-funded initiative which allows mothers and young children to purchase bread, fruit, vegetables and milk, as well as gain access to multivitamins. I have seen this in America, I think it was in Chicago, I'm not sure, where they did something similar, but it has worked for us in Birmingham. We are particularly interested in promoting vegetable uptake and have worked with local retailers and markets to promote this scene. We need to support the support of the private sector in order to act at scale. They can nudge consumers towards healthier food choices by redesigning shopping baskets, repositioning unhealthy healthy food items versus healthy food items, as well as providing cooking recipes, tips for healthy eating and for nutritious meals. In addition to the above, we are developing policies and practices that ensure developers of houses or infrastructure policies consider the food environment during the planning stage. And we have developed a planning tool in Birmingham. I'd like to leave it there. Thank you, Ivo.
Thanks for now, Paulette. We will revisit Birmingham and your work with food and food policy in a minute. But let's go to Alexandra and hear from your side. Having heard what Birmingham is talking about here, do you feel the role of cities is recognized in what you're working with in the farm to fork strategy as much as needed? I mean, just thinking about most people live in cities, so obviously most of our food is consumed in cities. So obviously cities have a big role, which of course you're aware of. Hearing what Birmingham is dealing with, do you feel this is exactly what needs to be done? Is there more that should be done? And how do you see that you can support cities like Birmingham with your work?
Thank you very much, and thank you also for the invitation to this very interesting dynamic morning coffee exchange, which is really networking of people who have a role to play in this transition to healthy and sustainable food systems. So healthy diets is really key to the farm to fork strategy. And this is not only linked to COVID, but as you say, to previous data showing that there is a big problem of obesity, cardiovascular diseases, which are linked also to bad nutrition. Therefore, healthy diets is really at the heart of our actions. And there are many actions in the farm to fork strategy to create this healthy food environment that was just mentioned. There are actions that are focusing on healthy information to consumers, reformulation, product reformulation, but also actions which are related to price, to availability of healthy food, We are now working also on the code of conduct, which aims to stimulate food industry to take commitments to increase the availability of healthy and more sustainable food. There are actions to revise the promotion program of EU Agri, to review also the EU fruit school scheme, and also actions related to mandatory sustainability criteria for public procurement. I think all these actions show that there is a big role for cities there. There is a big role for cities to create what we say the healthy environment, to educate also young generations. Not everything can be done through legislation, this is clear. Some they have said that the Farm to Fork strategy does not contain specific actions for cities. However, I think what is important to retain is that this holistic approach, the integrated approach of food systems that is put in place by the Farm to Fork strategy, this is what makes the difference. And on this basis, we are now also have the Horizon 2020, but also the Horizon Europe, which contains really research areas which focus to support the urban transformation. There are specifically in the new also Horizon 2030 program, there are 10 pathways, and the second pathway contains a research area how to better support municipalities and cities in these activities.
Thanks a lot, Alexandra. You mentioned some aspects that, Paulette, you already mentioned, like education and starting with the kids and so on. But you also mentioned the important collaboration with retailers, because fast food is everywhere. I mean, if you go to one of our city centers, it's difficult to get a healthy choice for food because you see all these fast food chain shops there. So being in a city and being responsible for getting towards a more healthy offer to your citizens, how can you cooperate with retailers and what can you do in the city for that?
Let me start by saying that in Birmingham, we actually did an analysis for the financial inclusion of partnership, which suggests that most people can walk to food outlets within 15 minutes. But I know there is no data on the quality of this food. And some of our citizens have told us that they struggle to access affordable, nutritious food. This may explain why nearly 40% of children and 60% of adults in Birmingham are overweight or obese. We introduced planning policies in Birmingham to restrict new fast food takeaways and outlet openings. The high streets are dominated by food businesses offering palatable food high in fat, sugar and salt. And we in Birmingham have worked with some of the businesses to modify recipes, but are desperately seeking cross-sector collaboration to move from the pilot to a large-scale transformative action. This requires more than voluntary commitments on the part of businesses. A national food strategy can enforce business to act in a way that local authorities can't. There is lots of the government did actually promise us that they would look at this, but the amount of pressure that they are facing from local businesses have meant that they are struggling to implement some of these strategies. Our food strategy is focused on creating a healthier food economy. We want to see food businesses assess for nutrition quality of the food they provide, as well as food safety. We know there is a market for healthier, sustainable food. For example, we've had 2 graduates from one of our universities spend £3,000 to set up a food business selling sugar-free products. And 3 years later, this business was valued at over £80 million. Government needs to support this sector to grow. Food Trails provides an opportunity to pilot ideas like this, and we are honoured and proud to be part of this consortium. Ivo, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Paulette, for sharing this. Alexandra, hearing this, it sounds to me like it can be tough to collaborate with retailers because there's always the margin that is maybe higher in the fast food business. There is a market, as Paulette explained, for those who dare and those who want, but there's still a very big market dominated by the not so healthy food. Going back to what you mentioned before, based on the code of conduct and a lot of voluntary action, my question to you would be, you feel voluntary action from the market is sufficient, is enough, or would it need a bit of pressure, a bit more of pressure than we have today to really make a change?
Yeah, I think this is a question. I think we need a combination of tools, a combination of regulatory actions and voluntary actions. One cannot say that voluntary action is sufficient on its own. There are many actions, as I mentioned before, which are of regulatory nature. For example, a mandatory in the legislation criteria for public procurement. We now have also, and there will be soon a proposal of the Commission on corporate governance, which will make mandatory due diligence sustainability criteria for companies. This will be discussed, and all this is complementary. The code of conduct we are working at the moment. It will be finalized the end of May, and we hope to have it signed by end of June. There will be a monitoring. I think when we put in place voluntary actions, it is very important to accompany this with monitoring and reporting, assessment, regular assessment to see actually what is the efficiency and the degree of adherence to these voluntary commitments by companies. We have to also take into account that sometimes voluntary action goes faster than legislation. We need some time to adopt the legislation, to apply it. But when you initiate also voluntary action, we have to avoid greenwashing, certainly, and that this becomes just a publicity for companies, but without really having an impact on the market and the consumer choices. And we also have to mobilize a critical mass. This is the challenge that we face now in elaborating this code of conduct, is how to mobilize a critical mass, but at the same time, maintaining a high level of ambition. Because if you take into account that the majority of the companies in Europe are SMEs, they are not always ready to take very ambitious commitments at this stage. And I think it will also be very important to motivate this change, to reward those who do the extra mile. This is how to do it. This is something that we have to see. But I would also like to mention here that one of the future projects is to put in place a sustainable food labeling that will distinguish the products which comply with high sustainability standards than other products.
Thank you, Alexandra. I've been between the two of you, between Alexandra and Paulette. So I would like to give a bit away and the floor to you directly, because Paulette, maybe there's something in what Alexandra just said that you want to comment on. Maybe something that you perfectly agree on, and you just want to emphasize how good that is and how much you welcome it in Birmingham, or maybe something you're missing or disagreeing on. What's your initial response after Alexandra's statements?
Alexander, I don't actually disagree with anything Alexander says, but what I'd like to emphasize is this thing about food labeling. Food labeling, we've done some research in Birmingham, and we know that food labeling is too complicated for people to understand. And businesses take advantage of this confusion and of the fact that people don't understand what the sugars, the fats and the salts are within the product. So they struggle to eat healthily. So I think there needs to be something that is drastically done around food labeling. Also, Andrea talked a little bit about advertising, and advertising is the vein of my life. because no matter how we lobby government and others about looking at how you advertise food, where junk food is kept in shops, how you can stop our young people and older people from always reaching for junk food instead of good quality, healthier food. It's really difficult to do. So for me, we have to look at banning junk food advertising, and we've got to make it more impactful when we try to ban it. It's not just about getting rid of it, but it's putting in healthier choices that people want to see. I read all of your food policies for my that strategy for my sins, and it talked about too much red meat, too much meat, unhealthy, the way that food was being produced. But the alternatives are not there for people in many of our lower, more deprived communities. We have to ensure that fruit and vegetable, not only is it easy to grow, not only are we show people to grow it in different ways, but what we actually do is that we make it more affordable. So for me, I absolutely agree with everything that's been said, but we need a strategy that the strategy highlights everything, but we need a roadmap to help some of those that really are struggling to get to where we're talking about, to help them to do so. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Ivor.
Thank you, Paulette. Alexandra, any reflections on that, especially on the labeling? Too complicated. I understand the main idea of labeling is to make things easier. So to give a quick overview about what's important to make an informed choice. So what can labeling do to meet this problem that Paulette just mentioned?
I perfectly understand. On the one hand, consumers want to know. It's always it's not easy always to satisfy the consumers' wishes and demands. Consumers want to know about the nutritional value of their food and many other elements. Regarding the healthy profile of the food, as you know, the Commission will come up in 2022 with the proposal for a mandatory front of pack scheme. We have seen different schemes on the market in the UK, the traffic light, in France, Belgium, and other countries, the Nutri-Score. This is a way to provide to the consumer easily understandable information and friendly to see the nutritional value of their food. However, labeling is not a panacea. It's not the only solution. I perfectly agree with you that there are many other tools to reach this objective of having a healthier basket when the consumer makes goes to the supermarket or to the grocery. And I think there we need to create also the appetite. There are many things. On the one hand, we need to create the appetite to consumers, especially to the young generations, where we can have the most of the influence for a change of culture, gastronomic culture, to want and to consider that it is even fashionable, it is trendy to go for healthier foods, and at the same time to work on making the healthier food the easy choice. Consumers say the default choice. So this is all about healthier environment. So there are many things to do at the same time, I think. And this is what the strategy is trying to do, to put all these pieces together.
I see especially this aspect of labeling has already triggered some comments in the chat. So maybe it's the right time to go to our large audience this morning that is already contributing to the discussion here via writing, and to see what we should bring up to our two experts here in the round. Anja, have you been able to follow the chat, and have you found something that our two colleagues here should address?
Yes, there is a variety of debate going on both in the chat and in the Q&A section. I'll try to summarize and maybe bring out one question that could be useful on both sides. So one question for Mrs. Nikolakopoulou is related to food public procurement and the key role of education and the use of procurement and how we can use it to promote more healthy food for citizens. However, cities sometimes do not have currently the technical knowledge to reach it, and because at the same time we have to look at sustainable procurement and healthy procurement, and sometimes a trade-off maybe might go one against each other. And then another question, maybe there is so much request for more information on the work of Birmingham. So maybe we can come back to this, but especially what will a city like Birmingham will need as a support from the EU to move forward?
Okay, so maybe Paulette, you could start on that. Maybe starting with the first thing that Anja mentioned is procurement is of course always a big topic in cities because the city is a big buyer. So you have buying purchase power. Do you use that already to also support your food strategy in Birmingham?
When you're looking at procurement, especially on a large scale, Birmingham doesn't procure that. That is procured through government, which is at a higher level. And sometimes people don't understand that this is not always done at a city level. This is done at a more national level. So what we as a city have done, re-procurement, we are trying to ensure that our businesses that are within the city make healthier choices. So what we've tried to do is look at the more planning aspects. So working with our planning department, our licensing department, working through the combined authorities, looking at more joined up ways of ensuring that the food that actually comes into the city, that we can get it to people at a more affordable rate, and people that are not able to afford to buy good quality food, working with partners to see how we can use the land and the space that we've got, that people can learn to grow food for themselves. So we are looking at different ways, because procuring food for a city is difficult when businesses are independent and it's coming from a national level. So we just have to make sure that people know how to cook food, how to grow food, how to work together in collaboration to ensure that our businesses don't go under because they try to do it in the right way and find themselves isolated on the high street because it is full of fast food shops, which is far cheaper, and that's where people want to go.
That puts a good light on something that is very important, obviously, and that is a national food strategy. And I understand that Britain has actually the first one in Europe of this kind. So it's a good example with the procurement that you just said. With the second question that Anja brought from the chat, it's a bit a ticket for you, Paulette, to ask something from Alexandra, because the question was, how can cities like Birmingham get more support, or what kind of support would you wish to get additionally from everything that Alexandra already mentioned from the Commission? Now is your day to make your wish.
Now, that question threw me because I believe the Commission have been absolutely brilliant. They have worked really well with Birmingham. We can always do more, but for me at this time, it's accessing that knowledge, that understanding of what's going on in Europe, and being able to talk to other cities and develop some joint cross-city working to see how we can share knowledge and how we can develop our cities in a more joined up way. Because even though we've had Brexit, it doesn't mean that in Britain, in England, in Birmingham, in the UK, we don't want to work with Europe. So we want to ensure that we get the good practices and we remain very close to the EU, so that the Food Commission, what you're doing there, we learn from your practices, but vice versa, you learn from us.
Paulette, now you made Alexandra's day, I'm sure, with giving praise to the Commission. Any final reflections from your side, Alexandra?
Final reflection is, no, I think that everything that we are discussing here is, first of all, very encouraging, I would say, to see already the comments in the chat. What we have said, we have heard now from Paulette. And I think this is what we need. We need encouragement, but motivation, but we need courage also to make the change, because these changes are important and there are a lot of trade-offs. I think somebody mentioned the trade-offs. It was in the chat when we are tackling the sustainability. The Commission, there is clearly a political will to support this change. we also do our best, not only in terms of legislation, but also in terms of creating networks for leveraging, scaling up, exchange of best practices through different platforms, be it in the food waste, in the climate pact, in the projects of research and innovation, the creation of policy labs and policy hubs. But also what is very important is to measure the effectiveness of the best practices. And these are things on which we will be working. What I would like to, as we have here interlocutor from a city, and you have mentioned the strategies, national strategies on food sustainability. I think what is important is that member states, countries, cities learn to work in a cross-sectoral manner. I mean, that putting the different disciplines, the different ministries, the different competent authorities together, because this is how we make this cultural change which is needed, and this is how we will resolve all the trade-offs which exist when we discuss about sustainability of food systems, including health.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and also Paulette, for this inspiring 30 minutes that we shared. It's already over, but I think we touched on many, many interesting and important things. And the good thing is it's not over because today's session is over, but the discussion will continue. We are looking forward to seeing the code of conduct when it comes out end of this month. And we will continue in the work with food trails. So stay tuned, as we said, with the website. And also come back tomorrow, because there will be another breakfast session tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And this will be exactly on what you just said, Alexandra, coming from the healthy food system to the sustainable food system. And that will be with the city of Copenhagen with us and with DG Agri. So there will be more dimensions to discuss healthy food and sustainable food. Come back tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us today, all of you listening in and sharing your ideas and questions in the chat, but most of all to Paulette and Alexandra, and also Andrea being with us this morning. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.